basic, like see predator run. Hundreds more, very complex. Back when spear throwing was a useful skill, while one person had the compulsion to practice hunting and the other didn't, the one who practiced would get more food in the hunt, rising in social status and mating more. It's an advantage for natural selection, and those genes proliferated. Elsewhere, while two cavemen sit around the fire, one might have the compulsion to listen to the village elder, and one might not. The next day, the one with the compulsion to listen to stories may have come across some poisonous berries and not eaten them, whereas the more ignorant caveman might have eaten them and died. Natural selection determined that trait as an advantage, nurturing our compulsions for storytelling and story hearing, and those genes proliferated. This is all part of a theory that fun comes from learning. You're satisfying your compulsion to learn through gaining skill or hearing stories, etc. There are other compulsions, like games like Pac-Man or Tetris tap into your compulsion to have a clean working space. Clearly, that compulsion's not strong in me, but as a species, our brains make us feel good for learning, whether it's commercial, industrial, or residential zones in SimCity, or medieval history from Age of Empires 2, or something less obvious like learning teamwork from being in a Counter-Strike clan. We at the Floppy believe the science of game design is at a fork in the road. One path is all about tapping into a childlike sense of play, like Nintendo games are so good at doing. Skill-based learning, rich narratives, and risk-free experimentation. These are games with something to be gained by playing them. In short, compulsion satisfaction. The other path is that of compulsion manipulation, more about pushing your buttons than you pushing the game's. This science neglects true fun in favor of carefully spacing out rewards to deny you a sense of closure. If you've ever been hard into an MMO, you may have thought to yourself after a 4-hour session, I didn't have fun just then. I felt the compulsion to play, but I didn't enjoy it. And if you haven't felt that, chances are someone you know has. And it's not new. Skinnerian systems to fool the brain have been around since pen and paper RPG. But back in the arcade days, their goal was to make you lose and then pay more money. And when you sold a PC game, you got the same amount of money if they played for 5 years or 5 minutes. Fast forward to 2011, and business models have figured out how to take advantage of longevity. Their goal is to keep you playing as long as possible, taking advantage of recurring revenue streams through subscriptions and microtransactions. It's a science that's evolved over quite a number of years, and they've figured out how to account for different types of gamers. If you're the type of gamer who likes to achieve, the intermittent rewards of these games seem tailored for you. But if this was the only playstyle they catered to, that would be only a slice of the pie. Competitive gamers are another obvious one. Good luck dominating other players without staying on top of the latest gear. What if you're a more social gamer? Well, you won't want to let your 24 guildmates down waiting for you in a raid. The explorer gamer is more complex. Exploration doesn't just apply to a game's geography, it applies to its systems as well. And sometimes a company will deliberately not fully explain a system, such as WoW's resilience stat, so that number-crunching, spreadsheet-creating Dexter has purpose. Because as soon as the explorer figures something out, it loses its novelty. That's not to say everyone's addicted. Maybe you play an MMO and you're fine. Some people are more susceptible than others and we're not sure what causes it. But now that we know all this, and that the same techniques are being used as in the gambling industry, isn't this unethical? After all, minors are playing these games, and even though we're spending more time than money, it can still be destructive.
Maybe in some cases, games are the only positive aspect of their lives, right? And would you then take the game away from a person like that when they have nothing else to look forward to because of some, let's say, deep mental illness, for instance? So it's certainly more complicated than saying games are causing addiction.
We don't know what it is, but we're not asking very deep questions about it either. We're not sort of stepping back and saying, okay, what's happening? It's not just happening in games either. It's happening in kind of techno-culture at large. You know, we've created a kind of, the computer has become this sort of compulsion machine. You know, someone said something new on Twitter about me or to me, or just have they said something new that I could see? Do I have new emails? Do I have new? You know, do I want to pull my phone out of my pocket right now and just look at it? Did something happen? That's sort of what we do all day now, and so no wonder that that's what we do in games, because that's what we do everywhere. We're looking for something new. We're just constantly trying to get a sip of additional sugar.
This is something we need to be talking about. Scariest of all is this is something the free market can't fix. The ability to be exploited is built into our brains, and currently those at the forefront of research into behavioral addiction are those profiting from it, and that can't be good. Journalists. The mainstream media will continue to get it wrong. It's up to us as enthusiast media to stay ahead of the curve. Start asking questions and raise awareness. Developers, pay attention to why you're making something. Ask yourself if a kind of social responsibility factors into what you do. Is this ethical design? And gamers, I'm not going to ask you to put the controller down. All I'll say is, when it came to my own MMO addiction, I lost the compulsion to play when I started researching the tricks that they were using. Hopefully this helps someone in the same way.